Here we go!
Sonic Adventure, the game that would forever reshape the universe of Sonic the Hedgehog, as fans like myself growing up knew it. Released in Japan in 1998 as a flagship title for the Sega Dreamcast, and then internationally in 1999, Sonic Adventure would take Sonic and company and thrust them head-on into a world that is likened more to our own, complete with imposing skyscrapers, a jungle concealing ancient secrets from the world, and an airborne death ship known as the Egg Carrier, made predictably by Dr. Eggman. Unless you count Sonic 3D Blast, which isn't entirely 3D in itself, Sonic Adventure is considered to be the first full serious 3D title in the Sonic series. It is also considered a game that boasts a highly considerable degree of ambition and innovation, qualities that fans like myself have yearned to see the return of for the more recent titles. While it hasn't aged graphically well, Sonic Adventure has certainly set the bar high as to how far it can push a Sonic game in terms of quality, for a multitude of reasons. It introduced the concept of open hub worlds, and of course dialogue, while further expanding upon the concept of diversifying gameplay across an expanded cast of characters, a concept that had been steadily built upon since the days of Sonic 2. Today, well over 20 years after its release, it holds up as one of the better Sonic titles in the opinions of quite a number of Sonic fans, including myself. For this video, I wanted to highlight a concept of Sonic Adventure, in particular, the boss battles. Now, these aren't exactly known for their difficulty curve unless you're playing against them for the very first time, as they are highly susceptible to exploitation, or having their behaviors manipulated in a way that conveniences you more, enabling you to finish these battles a lot easier than usual. Nevertheless, the concept of these boss battles is something that has always stood out to me, in addition to the many possibilities conveyed by the action stages. And so, as one of my first uploads to this new channel, I wanted to share a video where I talk about my personal 5 favorite boss battles of all time in Sonic Adventure. So for those of you that clicked on this video, feel free to join me as I count down my 5 favorite boss battles in Sonic Adventure. So before we get started on this top 5 compilation video for Sonic Adventure, I want to make some notes that should be kept in mind. The most important of which is, this video is not being presented as irrefutable fact, but rather a Sonic fan's opinion of his personal favorite bosses in the game. Nothing more, nothing less. Secondly, something like difficulty curves will not be the only factor going into my judgment of Sonic Adventure's bosses. There could be other factors coming into play here, such as gameplay diversity, and of course, the build-up to the boss. As a matter of fact, you'll hear me reference the build-up to the boss an awful lot while I talk about these particular 5 bosses, and maybe a handful of others that made it in as only honorable mentions. So with that said, let me take you through my top 5 favorite bosses in one of the greatest Sonic games of all time, Sonic Adventure. The first in line, my top 5 boss battle compilation for Sonic Adventure, would be Chaos 2, a stage of chaos that is unique only to Knuckles' storyline in the game. You encounter him a grand total of once, just like Chaos 0 and Perfect Chaos, although Perfect Chaos' case is completely understandable. Knuckles face off against Chaos 2 in a tightly enclosed space at the top of a building just outside the Casinopolis stage in Station Square after a brief run-in with Dr. Eggman. Now, out of all the forms of Chaos, I actually consider this one to be the most defensively oriented. And the reason being is, he starts the battle off by transforming into a huge globe of water that just bounces all around the map like a balloon. What's the counter to it? Just jump at it, and eventually Chaos will land and then resume his original form. After that, he'll start to walk all around the map in a slow, intimidating fashion that just makes you dread what's coming next, but truthfully, there's not all that much to worry about. You don't see it in this clip, but he does have a lunge attack that he will occasionally defer to while he is walking around like this, so be ready for it as it does have quite a reach. However, it doesn't occur often. Now, what makes this boss battle unique to me is that you can just attack this guy outright, because every time you try to launch an offensive, Chaos 2 will erect a shield that Knuckles cannot get past by punching or jumping. However, if he continues gliding into the shield, it will eventually lower itself, and suddenly, Chaos is in trouble. Another ability in Chaos 2's arsenal is that he will occasionally transform into a puddle that will grow to occupy quite a large amount of the map, but this too is easily avoidable. Just simply glide over it, and move right to safety, and eventually, the puddle will shrink, and Chaos 2 will reappear. So not terribly challenging, but it was very nice to see a form of Chaos that wasn't, you know, an oversized crab like with Chaos 6, or a mixture of man and fish in Chaos 4. I guess you also lay eyes on Chaos 1 once, but not as a boss battle, he's just there for a cutscene. And there's completely no sign of Chaos 3 and 5. Man, talk about a lot of missed opportunities. Next in line is the Egg Walker. While not exactly known for being very challenging, it does represent one of the higher stakes scenarios that unfolds in the game. In the events that precede this battle, Tails and Dr. Eggman race one another to a missile that failed to detonate when it collapsed into the top side of a tower in the Speed Highway stage. Once Tails beat Eggman to the finish, the two face off against one another just outside the Casinopolis stage in a grueling battle. Why this battle is so special to me is because it represents the apex of Tails' character development, as one of the biggest lessons he's had to grapple with since their separation after their first attempt to chase down the egg carrier, is that the Fox Boy cannot always rely on Sonic whenever things get bad. At some point, he will have to learn to hold his own, and hold his own he does. Incredibly so. Seriously, this was one of those few times in the Sonic series where I grew incredibly fond of Tails. What a character, man. As for the boss battle itself, how this works is, you simply run underneath Eggman, and he will begin pounding the ground using any of the Egg Walker's 4 legs. At first he will just use 1 leg, but as the battle progresses, he'll start to use 2 legs, and then 3. With each impact, a shockwave will be sent out, but this is easily avoidable by simply jumping or just flying above it since you are Tails, but be sure you don't fly too high but you end up touching the cockpit or you will take damage. Once the shockwave subside, attack the blue panels on the legs that will use to stomp the ground. Once you've done that, Eggman's cockpit will be lowered to the ground, giving you an opportunity to attack him. As you do that, Eggman will pounce from one side of a stage to the other, and if you leave him unattended to for too long, he will start to drop bombs that will produce blast radiuses that must be avoided. However, if you simply follow him to the other side of the stage and run underneath him immediately, you'll completely skip these attack sequences and he'll just go straight to the stomping sequence again, trying to create more shockwaves with the intention of catching you. Yeah, like I said, easily exploited. So it kinda does suck all the tension out of the battle when you realize it's so easy to manipulate the Egg Walker's behavior, but it still holds a place in my heart as one of the more iconic boss battles because of the part it plays in Tails' character development. Okay, guys, let's be level with one another here. I know y'all were not thinking that there wouldn't be room in this boss compilation for this guy right here, right? Perfect Chaos? The final antagonist of Sonic Adventure? The end point of the entire game? Seriously? But it's not just for the fact that he's the final boss. Everything about this boss's presentation has been handled with the skill of a legend. From the presentation to the build-up, the tone, the concept, everything about this boss, even the piece of soundtrack that is heard for like 50% of it, which is frankly offending as I think that should be bumped up to 100%, but oh well, I don't make the rules. and that is Open Your Heart, the main theme of Sonic Adventure. And why exactly it is so powerful a piece of music? Well, because it perfectly captures the inner turmoil of perfect chaos. That's why. Pun not intended, because you know, perfectly. But come on, if you're familiar with Chaos' backstory, and you know what the lyrics are, it all just resonates so well with you that even decades later, it never fails to move me, especially while I'm engaged in the battle. It is so amazing, like I just don't have that many more words to describe it. But all that said, you may be wondering, why exactly is Perfect Chaos not inside my top 2 for this compilation? Well, while it excels in just about every other department, the gameplay is where it kinda starts to trip up. It's incredibly easy to lose control of your momentum with Super Sonic for one. Well, for me it is anyway. I'm sure with practice it becomes less of an issue, but otherwise he's very, very Bobby and Weavy, if that makes any sense. But it's not so much the movement as it is the fact that the stage physics are quite jarring. Like you can bump headlong into what feels like jagged corners of the piece of highway strewn throughout the destroyed city, that it can just feel weird, and you can't afford to lose speed while you're trying to approach Perfect Chaos because you need to be going as fast as possible, so you have the force necessary to deal damage to him when you reach him. Between this and being able to pass directly in between the boost panels that are found along the highways, which is quite weird, I know, it can get very easy to be thrown off. Worse yet are the attack patterns that Perfect Chaos comes equipped with. At the start he'll send out homing lasers that will track you, and it is not exactly clear as to how you avoid these. I used to always think that the best way to avoid them was just to stay directly in the middle of the stage, never bob to the left or right, and they'll always miss you. But recently that theory was shot out of the water. Along with that, when you close in on Perfect Chaos, he'll abandon the lasers in favor of alternating between tornadoes and a powerful cannon blast, created entirely by his breath. Like, seriously, he's breathed on Eggman's second egg carrier and kaboom! God, that guy is powerful. But not so powerful that Super Sonic cannot handle him. Another drawback that kind of interests me is that for a final boss, he actually doesn't have the highest amount of health in the game. That honor actually belongs to the Egg Viper from Sonic's storyline. So why is it that Perfect Chaos, supposedly the ultimate final challenge in the game, needs only 6 hits to be beaten, rather than a little more than that? I suppose if you look at the fact that he's divided into 2 phases, which honestly aren't all that different from one another, then it makes some sort of sense, but even then you would think it'd take a little more effort than that. But I guess it's because the developers took into account the fact that Super Sonic is governed by a time limit concerning his ring counter, as he does need rings to maintain his super form. So they didn't want to push the difficulty curve too high, but that's my only guess anyway. Make of it what you will. Still, doesn't take away from the fact that this was one of the most well-executed final bosses in Sonic history, and if a Sonic Adventure remake does happen, I cannot wait to see how this boss would work in such a setting. Until then, Perfect Chaos is my pick for number 3 in this top 5 boss compilation. Get a load of this! Yeah, I know, my Eggman impersonation isn't exactly up there, but for my number 2 pick in this top 5 boss compilation, we have the Egg Viper. A snake-like machine that was constructed by Eggman as a last stand against Sonic in the event that his main plan didn't go so well, which, newsflash, it didn't. You run into this guy shortly after completing the final egg action stage as Sonic, and once you do, the both of you are rocketed upwards into an arena consisting of 2 long lines of platforms overlooking a bottomless pit. And I kinda find the bottomless pit confusing because it almost feels like the rest of the base just fell away completely when we made it to the very end of the final egg, which is odd, but I guess the fall that would result in Sonic falling into the pit would be too long for him to take that he'd end up dying if that happened, which is why they ended up making it a death zone. If so, then I guess that makes sense. So why exactly is the Egg Viper among my top 2 picks for my favorite bosses? Well, as it's the boss with the highest amount of health in the game, it has the benefit of having quite a number of attack patterns at its disposal, each of which make it more interesting than the last. Just about the only part of it that you can reliably exploit would be the lasers that Eggman uses to open the fight. You know, the laser he spits out while bobbing up and down alongside the platforms and yelling, "Get a load of this! Get a load of this! Get a load of this!" You can't tell me that that didn't become such a popular meme among the Sonic community. Like, come on. You hear it every single time Eggman spits those lasers out, along with some other unique attacks that he performs in the game. And to be fair, that line isn't exclusive to the Egg Viper boss. It's also heard in repetitions during the Egg Walker boss. As Egg Viper continues to sustain damage, the number of attack patterns it will switch between will increase. From spitting out lasers that will result in the blast radius upon impact, to flying above one line of platforms while sweeping the area with lasers, to playing Frisbee with Sonic, using 2 serrated discs. You know, the spinning disc that has spikes adorned into the edges of them. What if you think Sonic is? A dog or something? I don't know, but hey, take him up on his offer to play and he'll regret it very quickly. At the end of the fight, Eggman will make one last ditch effort to get the last lap by trying to crash his craft directly into the platform on which Sonic is standing. Just when you thought you'd won, Eggman's like, nope, you ain't won yet. So you need to pay close attention to that. It's an interesting boss in that it doesn't end straight away once you've taken his health gauge down to 0. Even once you've done that, you have to stay alert for the possibility that he may try to pull a fast one on you, which makes this boss definitely interesting. And when you couple that with the soundtrack that's playing in the background, it further adds to the tension, conveying the feeling of a doctor who's completely and utterly fed up with the object of his pain for years and years on end, and is out trying to end it once and for all. Also, the same soundtrack can be heard during the Egg Walker boss, which is pretty cool. So before I reveal my number 1 pick in this boss compilation, I want to draw some honorable mentions for a few of the bosses that I strongly consider for this video, though ultimately they ended up not making the cut. And here they are. First of all, we have Knuckles' version of the Chaos 6 boss battle that takes place aboard the Egg Carrier. Sonic has just wiped the floor of him, and then when he abandons ship to chase Dr. Eggman, Knuckles is left to pick up the slack as Chaos 6 makes an unexpected resurgence. Only this time, 2/6 of the panel on which he and Knuckles are standing are blown off. Knuckles cannot fall into any of these destroyed panels, or it'll basically be the equivalent of falling into lava or on a spike bed. He'll take damage. But as Knuckles can glide, this is largely irrelevant. Also, as Eggman is no longer around to supply the ice generator that Sonic previously used to take down Chaos 6, they now just fly into the arena entirely of their own volition. I gotta say, Eggman weirdly programs his stuff at times, but hey, it's a godsend, what are you gonna do? Other than that, the strategy to take down this boss is pretty much the same as it was while you were Sonic. Interesting to note is that as Sonic, if you do a light speed attack after you freeze Chaos 6, he takes double the damage that he would normally take if you were to just homing attack him. So it makes me wonder, would Knuckles be able to achieve a similar effect if he were to perform his own version of a light speed attack, which is known as the Maximum Heat Knuckles attack? This ability is made available to Knuckles if he picks up the Fighting Gloves upgrade on a cliff overlooking the jungle in the Mystic Ruins. Next in line is Zero, who is about to be on the wrong end of Amy's Pico Pico hammer. Seriously though, I want to know where exactly she keeps that thing? It always seems to be there when she needs it. So that's besides the point. Shortly after she and her bird companion arrive aboard the crashed Egg Carrier, Zero makes a surprise attack that leaves the bird grievously injured. The sight of the bird suffering causes Amy to be filled with a rage so unbearable that she completely forgets her fear of her robot pursuer. She makes the first attack against Zero, thus starting the one and only boss fight that ever occurs in her segment of the game. Similar to the action stages, Zero will attempt to pursue you just as he did before, but this time when you knock him around, you're doing so with the intention of flinging him into the electrified fence surrounding the ring. Once you do, Zero will be temporarily immobilized, and then pop goes his top, revealing a self-destruct button. Once Zero goes down, Amy does her part in helping to heal the bird from its injuries, thus leading to a happy ending. It's really the build-up that leads to this boss rather than the concept of the boss itself that makes this encounter that much more memorable for me. For my last honorable mention, I want to acknowledge E105 Zeta, the last of the E100 series robots that is located within the Hot Shelter action stage, also a last stage for E102 Gamma. For the majority of Gamma stages, the player is required to venture to the very end where they are forced to confront another of the E100 series robots and defeat them in order to rescue the animal controlling them, intentionally or otherwise. For the first two, Delta and Epsilon, it's pretty straightforward. Just keep mashing the attack button to lock onto them repeatedly and fire your lasers at them, all without relenting in your aggression, and you'll beat them just like that. You don't even have to let them gain any momentum at all. With Zeta on the other hand, you have to put forth a little more effort, as you have to take out all of the cannons adorning Zeta's body in a circular fashion, and you must do so while traveling aboard a spinning platform. You'll need to be careful though, because Zeta will repeatedly flood the room with missiles, although you can lock onto these and fire your lasers at them to remove them from the equation entirely so that they won't hurt you. Or you could just outrun them until they explode by themselves, but I think it's preferable to get rid of them while you're taking out the cannons. Other than that, it's still mostly a straightforward battle. Button mashing will generally get the job done. To be honest, a large amount of Gamma's gameplay is quite degenerative, and I wish a little more innovation had gone into it. But hey, it was nice to at least see Sonic Team attempt to take things up a notch with the design of E105 Zeta, rather than just letting it turn into another button mashing festival like with Delta and Epsilon. However, what they do with another boss that I'm sure you all are thinking of right now is a shining example of progress. And so without further ado, I give you all my number one pick for this top 5 boss compilation in Sonic Adventure. E101 Beta Mark II, the evolved form of E101 Beta, and the final boss of Gamma's episode. I'm sure this election has taken many of you by surprise, as I did describe Gamma's gameplay to be super linear, which it is, but I'm sorry, this is a hill that I will die on any day of the week. Whenever I think of Sonic Adventure's bosses, the first one that typically comes to mind is Beta Mark II, as I firmly believe it is the pinnacle of boss design. Why? If you recall, I mentioned how the build of the perfect chaos was handled phenomenally well. The tone, the concept, everything about it. It was just, what was there to criticize really? Other than the gameplay of course, which I have to say wasn't the greatest. That was literally the only thing that kept it from being placed within the top 2 of this compilation. With Beta Mark II on the other hand, you get the best of both worlds. An emotionally compelling storyline that leads to the apex of Gamma's character development, and of course, excellent gameplay. Let's get to the gameplay bit first. Beta Mark II served as a powerful answer to Gamma's linear gameplay. Every time you try to attack Beta, he will just swat your lasers aside or evade them. You must wait until Beta attempts to close the distance and attack you himself before you will get your opening. Although it takes only 4 hits to take out Beta, the amount of time it does take to get them in the first place keeps this boss from losing way too much tension. Oh, and did I mention that you have a time limit? As for the storyline, this was already covered during Zeta's honorable mention, but halfway in Gamma's episode, he takes it upon himself to liberate his E100 series friends from their robotic prisons. This is a mission he takes upon himself after he fully defects from Eggman's ranks halfway through his episode. And well before that, he comes across Beta in a forbidden room aboard the egg carrier when it was still airborne. Beta could be seen undergoing a period of reconstruction that was clearly meant to upgrade his design. No doubt that encounter triggered something within Gamma's circuitry that would pave the way for the most extraordinary phenomenon about his story. The fact that a robot could achieve sentience. Almost unheard of at the time. Right after Zeta's rescue of the hot shelter, Gamma's episode takes a more emotional turn as he comes to the revelation that to finish his mission, his rescue mission, he must destroy himself. At the time, my child self had difficulty comprehending the full magnitude of this, but now, oh boy, this can lead to quite a tear-jerker. You won't see it here in this footage, but once you've beaten Beta, the 2 robots actually manage to use their last strengths to free each other. Gamma and Beta are both destroyed, and the parents of the bird that can be seen traveling with Amy during her episode are freed at last. It's a sad ending for Gamma at first, but also a happy one, because it means the animal piloting Gamma's body since the very beginning can finally fly free. as can the bird trap within beta. The concept of the flickies was further expanded upon in Sonic 3D Blast when they played a pivotal role in Sonic's completion of the stages there. But in Sonic Adventure, the fact that the animals is sentient is able to influence the robotic counterpart in some way was by far some truly in-depth storytelling on Sonic Team's part. And for that reason, while not exactly a long episode, let alone an innovative one, the story just makes it absolutely worth it. Again, it's a heck of a tearjerker, and everything you would ever want from a boss battle. So for that reason, I happily give Beta Mark II the #1 spot in this boss compilation. And thus we have arrived at the end of my top 5 boss compilation for Sonic Adventure. I must confess, making a video like this did not come easily. I never made a top 5 video before, so for making this video, I had to employ entirely new strategies. I'm also quite picky about my commentary. I don't read all the scripts when making my videos, but I still care for my commentary's presentation all the same, so I tend to do quite a staggering number of retakes, not just for this video, but for videos in general, to ensure that it's as good as it can possibly be. I don't know a top 5 video will be a commonplace feature on this channel going forward. It was just something I felt like doing in the spur of the moment. And seeing as Sonic Adventure was always among my top 3 favorite Sonic games, I felt it deserved some devotion in today's video. And so here we are. So what did you think? Did you think the 5 bosses I've chosen this compilation are indeed the game's best 5 bosses for gameplay reasons or otherwise? If not, which 5 bosses did you think were the best? Let me know with your likes and comments down below, and if you want to keep up with my content going forward, just hit that sub button and ring that bell so y'all don't miss out on anything. I'm sorry to have kept y'all waiting for a week before this video went up, but as you can imagine, a lot of time went into this compilation. So, thank you for watching, and I will see you all in my next upload. Until then, peace. Blue blurs for life. Take care.